Bricks and Minifigs is your one-stop shop for all things LEGO. Hit the link below to find a store near you.
My name is Tim Kayrouz. I'm a huge fan of Castlevania. I've always been, and I wanted to make a really grand, kind of epic Castlevania creation to really show all the cool things that the games have, all the different kind of creatures and monsters and aesthetics and cool weapons. So yeah, so basically the goal is to get to Dracula. You got to go through this giant castle and get all the way up to the top where Dracula is waiting to fight you. And I have all the different characters from the games. I wanted to include all the ones I love. And so, from all the, through the 80s, 90s, 2000s.
So this has been around a long time then.
Yeah, the first one was on NES, the Nintendo Entertainment System. And then they were on all kinds of game consoles. It wasn't a Nintendo exclusive. So it was on Sega, and it was on PlayStation. So all the different eras and a lot of different game consoles have Castlevania history. So it's pretty awesome.
Very cool. What's the best room to start in here then as we kind of start our journey with the build?
So basically, this room right here is meant to be sort of evocative of the very first room in Dracula's castle from the original game, where you fight ghosts and you fight these kind of dog creatures. And so you go up the stairs there, and then you enter into the next room, where you've got just some kind of miscellaneous enemies. Some of them I just wanted to throw in, like there's some Ninjago guys there, and there's like the Basilisk from Harry Potter. And so in that room, you've got Richter and Maria, two of the fan favorite characters. And Maria there is using her cats to fight evil, which I've always loved. And then the room after that is probably the most complicated one, the clock tower. And I need to motorize it. I haven't done that yet, but all those gears do move. And if you want, I can hop behind here and do that. But yeah, so that one's crazy. Let me go do that. So then this top room here is it's like a study almost. I wanted to use some of those cool 60s Batcave wallpaper bricks. So I put that and some other fun printed parts that I love, all the beakers and little translucent pieces that I can't resist putting in a mock. So those are all there.
What are the weapons from up there in that room?
Yeah, so those are floating weapons where there's some levels in the game where you enter a room and it's full of weapons floating in the air, and they all come at you trying to kill you. So you have to fight them, and you have to find the one that's kind of in charge. And so yeah, that one's pretty fun. Oh, I actually forgot. So the clock tower goes into this room. That's sort of a bonus room. But so this is sort of another hallway where you're fighting skeletons, but you can drop down into the item room. So you get all these other items. So you have the little cross, you have the axe, you have the stopwatch, which lets you pause time. That's the most useful one. And you've got the holy water and a dagger and a bunch of enemies there. And then you go from that room up into here. Sorry. And we've got some terrifying characters waiting to greet our heroes. And we've got some kind of floating eyeball villains. And we have the classic trio from the Castlevania 3 and from the Netflix series. We have Trevor, we have Sypha, and we have Alucard up top there. And they are just fighting to make it to the top of this castle.
I love the use of those connected flame pieces there, which I think you can only do with the older ones, right? That have the pieces, the kind of stud pieces on them.
That's correct. Only with the older ones you can do that. And so it's a endlessly satisfying connection that you never get tired of. So I love doing that.
What's up above that then?
Oh, so that's my sig fig, using what's called an item crash, where if you gain enough hearts, you can use that cross sub weapon, but in a much more epic, elaborate way. And he's taken down some orcs and a very angry looking Lotso hugging bear. And then once you get rid of those guys, you go up the stairs, and then you're finally facing off against Dracula. And he steps down from his throne, and he probably has some unkind words for you, and then he'll try to take you down. And the little beams of light there on either side of Simon Belmont are sort of from one of the games where he has these two beams of light that go around you, and once they're on either side of you, a third one comes up right where you're standing. And there's basically no way to get away from that. So people who have played that and who have been very upset by how difficult it is will recognize that.
Oh, and then I think we skipped over the room just below that then.
Oh, we did. I'm so sorry.
No, you're good. Yeah, I was just going all over the place. There's so much excitement here.
Yeah. So yeah, this is Death. How could I forget one of the most famous enemies in all of Castlevania? He's a fan favorite. You know, in almost every game, the death boss fight, even though it's not the final boss, it's usually the coolest. It's usually the most epic. And I wanted to do really do death, really do it justice here. So I've got Charlotte and Jonathan fighting him, and he's got all these scythes floating around the room. And there's no pattern in the games. The scythes will just float around at random, and you have to try to dodge them. And so it's always been a difficult but very rewarding level to beat in each game.
The background in that room is really interesting. So what did you do there?
So there I wanted to have kind of the castle silhouetted. I wanted to have the sky, I wanted to have the moon. And it was very difficult to layer all of those in a way that looked kind of aesthetically pleasing. Maybe not, it was a little bit too dark, I think, in the end. I think maybe I could have used a different shade of blue, but I'm still pretty happy with it.
And then the lettering on the very bottom here is great as well. So what were some of the techniques you used to do that?
So that one has a lot of upside down building, and it has some, I think there's a few things that are in there with friction. I used clips and bars for a lot of those, and there's some upside down cheese slopes. That was definitely the most difficult Lego math that I had to do, but it was really fun. That was the first thing I did was the logo. I said, well, I know I'm doing a logo, and I don't know how big it'll be with these Lego letters I'm gonna have to come up with. So I did that first, and then kind of based the rest of the width of the thing off of that.
And then there's a couple of rooms at the very bottom here as well.
Yeah, these ones are sort of like the lower kind of dungeony rooms, or yeah, just kind of an assortment of enemies down there. We got some Dementors, we got a Fluffy, we got the drawbridge, little skeleton guy there. And then on the other side, we've got a room that's actually a scene from the Netflix series. It was one of my favorite fight scenes where these two characters have an epic showdown in a room that's been drenched with blood. So the floor is all covered, and they're going at it.
So did you intend for the build to be this big from the very beginning and kind of know what rooms you wanted to represent, or did it just kind of come together and you're like, oh, I've got to make sure I represent these characters in this room?
I started with like a list of things I wanted. I knew I was going to have like the floating eyeball enemies. I knew I wanted to have death be a really big, elaborate thing. But I did not think it would be this big. I think I probably expected it to be about 2/3 the height that it is now. It ended up kind of spinning out of control. I had so many ideas, and once I started drawing up my plans for it on paper, I was like, okay, I got to do this, I got to do that. I need to have a good balance of this. And yeah, it was a lot of fun to design it and have more and more ideas. I was playing the games while I was designing it, so I kept seeing things, oh, I got to stop and write that down to make sure I put it in there. So it was a really fun process creatively.
Now, do you have any like custom third-party elements in here, like weapons and armor or anything like that? Where did you get some of that from?
I mostly kept it Lego. There's a couple of things that are non-Lego. Over in the study, there's some blood splatters that are, I forget if those are Brick Forge or they're definitely non-Lego. I think that is just about it for non-Lego. Maybe a couple weapons or something, but I'm no hardcore purist, but I tend to keep it Lego, unless there's some piece that they don't make yet, some system part, and I'm like, well, I need that, you know?
No, that makes sense.
Yeah.
What is the overall structure? How does this whole kind of building come together when you're bringing it to a show like Bricks Cascade?
So I decided pretty early on the only way to do it is to have it be split into modules. So each one of these rooms does disconnect from the other. And yeah, some of the roof stuff comes off. Obviously, I remove all the figures before I moved it. But yeah, I made it so that it would be pretty easy to move because that's a priority.
How tall is the whole build? Do you know?
I've not measured it. I probably should.
It's
Probably something like, what, 3 feet? 3.5 feet?
Yeah, I think at least. It's very impressive just standing here looking at it. I also love this kind of stained glass effect up there. I always love to see how people achieve that with different kind of trans-colored bricks in those windows.
Thank you so much. You know, as a Lego part hoarder that has all these pieces that I always wonder, am I going to use this eventually? It was nice to bust out my bag of translucent bricks and be like, all right, it's time to really do something cool with these. So, yeah.
Do you have any other plans for the Castlevania universe and kind of building more in that in the future?
There's, as much as I did here, there's a few things I didn't do that I kind of want to. So, and I know that, you know, as time goes on, I'll grow more as a builder and I'll discover cool new techniques. And so I definitely think someday I might take another swing at it. And, you know, maybe if I play more of the games and get obsessed with some idea, I'll probably come back to it at some point.
Well, sounds good. This is an incredible start, though, and there's so much fun action in this build, so thank you for taking us through everything here. Appreciate it.
Thank you.